Let's come to what is easily the most controversial position you have defended. Infanticide, the legitimacy of infanticide, the killing of recently born infants under certain circumstances. Right. What are those circumstances?
Well, firstly, what I'm saying is that I think that in some cases where infants are born with serious disabilities, the parents and doctors together should be able to choose that the child should not live. And having made that choice, they should be able to make sure that the child then dies swiftly and humanely. And I put it that way for two reasons. Firstly, I'm not here to say, you know, this child should live and this child shouldn't. You might have two children with exactly the same disability, one with a family who wants to love and care for that child and do everything possible for it, another with a family who says, look, we think this life is, you know, starting under such poor prospects that we really think it's better that the baby not live, and then maybe we'll have another child with better prospects. So I think it's, you know, both of those families should be able to make their choices and should be supported by the community and the government with resources to assist the child if they decide that the child should live, or permitted to end the child's life humanely if they think it's better the child should not.
Up to a certain point in time?
Well, I think it's actually hard to draw a cut-off line. That is something on which I've changed. 20 years or so ago, I wrote a book in which my co-author and I suggested a 28-day cut-off, which was based on an ancient Greek ritual that you performed 28 days after birth, when you carried the baby around the hearth of the home and you accepted the baby into the community, and after that you could no longer expose the baby on the hillside, as used to be done with disabled babies. So, you know, we thought, well, maybe that's a suitable cutoff. And that is around the time, I think, when it's starting to get a bit late, because there's usually more bonding between family and child. But I wouldn't say that you could have a rigid cutoff, really, I think.
Before they're self-aware?
Yes, when they're clearly not self-aware.
That's important.
I think that that's a reasonable way of marking a distinction. Obviously, development of self-awareness is gradual. And that's why it's hard to find any sharp lines. Basically, I would say I think these decisions should be made as soon as possible after birth, as soon as, you know, the medical information and the family have had time to assimilate that, maybe to inquire about the condition, perhaps to consult with organizations of people who have that disability, or parents of people with children with that disability, so that they can really inform themselves properly on the issue.
There are other ways of looking at this, of course. Couldn't one say, for example, that personhood, or what it is to be a person, is a deeply mysterious thing? And although we have no clear definition of that, we can recognize persons when we see them. Peter Singer is a person. Stephen Hawking is a person. The deaf Beethoven is a person. A child born with a disability is a person even before 28 days.
Well, I think we need to talk about these border cases, if you like, and try and decide if this is a mysterious intuition, how we know. I mean, let's say a child born without a brain, with a brain stem, so they're not brain dead, but with nothing more in the brain. So this child will never be able to recognize his or her mother, will never smile at another human being as they come in the room, will never communicate in any way, will not feel anything either. Is that a person?
Yes. Why isn't it a person?
Well, because I don't think that the only thing that we can say about this child is that biologically it's a member of our species born to human parents. I think the notion of personhood, and this is not incidentally original to me, this is something that goes all the way back through philosophers like John Locke, in fact to early Christian philosophers like Boethius, who were debating what it is to be a person when they discussed the doctrine of the Trinity. And they said, well, a person is a rational substance. So this baby with no brain is not a rational substance. It's not rational now. It never will be rational.
You don't accept, obviously, the traditional notion of the sanctity of human life. What's wrong with that idea?
Well, as I said, it's speciesist. I mean, it's limited to human beings. It says that biologically being a member of the species Homo sapien is enough to make your life more sacred, more entitled to protection than the life of, for example, a chimpanzee who is not a member of our species, who is far more self-aware, far more rational, far more capable of emotionally connecting with other beings, with loving her child, let's say, if it's a female, chimpanzee than a human being with anencephaly, the condition we were talking about, could ever be. That seems to me just a mere prejudice in favour of members of our species.
A being with Alzheimer's, a human being with Alzheimer's. This was a personal experience of your own with your late...